Hello and welcome back to the Middling Along podcast. I'm your host, Emma Thomas, founder of Managing the Menopause and The Triple Shift. My guest today is Lauren Currie OBE. She's the founder of UPFRONT, an organisation on a mission to change confidence, visibility and power for 10 million women. Thousands of women from over 50 countries have already graduated from their flagship programme, the UPFRONT Bond. And UPFRONT is the world's top choice for women and organisations that are interested in increasing their confidence. Welcome to the podcast, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me, Emma. I am happy to be here.
I'm very happy to have you. As I was saying off air, I've been following you for more years than I care to remember. So yeah, I feel like this is a kind of a full circle moment getting to interview you. It's lovely. So as I said, UPFRONT's on a mission to inspire over 10 million women to be more confident. So why don't we kick off by me asking you, what does confidence mean to you personally, and how did you learn to cultivate it?
Yes, one of my favourite questions, because I think ultimately one of the reasons that I built UPFRONT is because how we think about and understand what confidence is broken. It's like we absorb all these stories and myths and ideas about what a confident person looks like, what they sound like. And essentially what that does is it becomes such a narrow definition of confidence that it can become a tool to perpetuate bias and exclude people. So I think it's really important and healthy to start there. It's like, actually, what is confidence? What does it mean to me? How do we define it at UPFRONT? At UPFRONT, we define confidence as learning to trust yourself. I think for me, the key part of confidence is having a bias towards action. So it's never about feeling fearless or having no doubts or worries or feeling totally ready. It's about learning to show up, to speak up, to say yes, to take the next step, even when you're full of doubt, even when you're questioning, am I the right person? Can I do this? Am I good enough? You know, I have been on and will always be on my confidence journey. It's like, it's not a thing that you can graduate. It's like you don't graduate.
You don't win. You don't win the confidence gold medal.
You don't get a gold star. There's no confidence gold medal. And, you know, my journey has been, I mean, it's been a roller coaster, like everybody's confidence journey. You know, I was the first in my family to go to university. I had no safety net. You know, confidence wasn't handed to me. I was a very extrovert, confident young girl. And then as I went through the education system, I learned very quickly that the world does not like confident girls. And, you know, the world is not a place that is kind to confident women. And so my work has been unlearning that and reconnecting with my natural gift for being on stage and telling stories and inspiring people. And, you know, I do that through saying yes to hard things before I feel ready to do them. You know, I have an intense bias towards action, which I think was really reinforced through my art school education, where you're almost rewarded and given gold stars for, you know, how many shitty first drafts did you make of this design? How many times did you prototype the Hoover before you built the Hoover that became the master Hoover? So yeah, I think it's about taking action.
And confidence will look different for each of us. Not everyone's going to feel confident getting up on a stage in front of other people, but that doesn't mean to say they can't cultivate their own, you know, flavour of whatever confident means to them.
That's exactly it. You know, we're taught that there's one size that fits all, and if you don't fit that, you're told you're either too confident or you're not confident enough. You know, the data tells us that women are in what academics call a double bind. It's like you're either too confident or you're not confident enough.
Yeah.
So
can't win.
Yeah, it's really important to understand that we do live in a world that rewards extroversion, and that is not good for anybody. You know, confidence can be quiet and gentle and silent and soft, and confidence shows up in a huge variety of ways, and it also shows up very differently for each of us. You know, it's how I show up confidently as a parent is very different to how I show up confidently at work. Sometimes I feel really confident in social circumstances, not so confident in, learning how to cook a new recipe or whatever.
Mm.
It's like the volume of confidence really differs, I think, across different aspects of your life. Because that's not normalized, people are like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Why do I feel okay here and not okay here?
And I think the optics are interesting as well. So I was having a chat to somebody who works in a similar field to me about an hour ago before recording this, and I find it absolutely fascinating the way that other people see me, like whether that's kind of how I show up on LinkedIn, for example, or the things that I talk about on the podcast. And I find that other people see a very, very different, quite confident version of me that I'm kind of projecting out in those different spaces and places to the way that I feel in my kind of inner world.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that's the same for lots of people. So, people might be thinking certain things about me that kind of aren't necessarily true, but because of the sort of that what they have seen, the parts that I have allowed to be seen, they will have a very kind of preformed idea of how confident I am or how successful I am or all of those things. So I think, as you say, normalizing that actually we all kind of have that, we all have that fear and that kind of inner critic and all of that stuff going on. Just because people can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
And your story really articulates what the problem is, right? It's like we tell ourselves these really deep stories about confident people. So one of the stories is, I see Emma, she's running her own business, she's showing up online, she's putting herself on stages and, in situations that are uncomfortable, stretching outside your comfort zone. Therefore, she must be totally confident, feeling really secure, has an incredible support system. Whatever that story, it's like we make up stories that take away the complexity and the nuance of being a human being who's trying to do big things in the world. It's like confident people don't feel confident all the time. Everybody needs support, everybody needs validation, everybody has moments of self-doubt, everybody has moments where they feel nervous. And it's like the more we can normalize all of that, then we get rid of this myth, and we stop putting people, people like the people who are watching you from afar, putting you on a pedestal. It's like we're all on our own journey figuring it out.
Mm. And I'm sure I've said this before, but if people could see me recording this in a messy dining room with a kind of a bunch of scrunched up post-it notes over there and my laundry in the corner, that's the reality. I'm not sitting in a kind of a glossy podcasting studio somewhere and kind of with a whole team of people behind me. It's it really is kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
very, very ordinary. Anyway, I didn't want to talk about me.
Ordinary, but extraordinary.
As I mentioned, you've already reached
Mhm.
thousands and thousands of women through the upfront bond or bonds, because you've got different flavors of bonds, and maybe we can talk about that too. But can you explain to anyone who hasn't kind of come across that work what they are, how they work, what happens to somebody as they kind of go through that process? Because it's really quite interesting to see people who have gone through that, sort of showing up in some of your upfront spaces, and the just the way that they talk about that experience as transformative.
Mm, of course. So, bond is the collective noun for a group of women. So, this means that every cohort of women that goes through our program is its very own bond. So, every year we have public bonds. So, last year we had bond 7 and 8, and this year we'll have bond 9 and 10. Bond 9 just starts in a few days from when we're recording this, and bond 10 will be later in the year. And those are bonds where any woman from any sector can turn up and buy a ticket. So we welcome everybody from chief execs, apprentices, jewelers, primary school teachers, engineers at NASA, dancers, makeup artists, everything in between.
Hmm.
And we also have bonds for specific sectors. So we have a charity bond. So charity bond starts in June, and that's for women who work or volunteer for charities. And then we have a government bond. That's for women who work for local government or central government. And then we also host workplace bonds. So, we have a Nike bond or a Sainsbury's bond where all the people in the bond work for that one organization.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a 6-week online learning experience that is very focused on building your confidence and the confidence of the women around you. So we are straddling this really unique space of individual growth and development and earning more and being more boundaried, feeling more comfortable, stretching yourself outside your comfort zone, saying yes to things that used to scare you, all that good stuff, with the systemic lens of how do we change cultures, teams, how we're parenting, how we're showing up in community, how we're showing up in with our votes, to mean that we are not still having this conversation in 10 years. So we start to change the systems that are reinforcing the old confidence stories that are keeping the status quo how it is. So we're balancing the kind of individual and the systems lens to teach women how to own their voice, set boundaries, ask for more money, step into leadership. And it's a learning experience, but it's actually mainly an unlearning
Mm.
experience. It's about unlearning all of the social conditioning, the myths, the falsehoods that we've absorbed, that we tell ourselves, that we reinforce in each other. And community is a huge part of it. We're taking the pressure off you as an individual by creating a space that is very community centered. So it's about growing confidence collectively. Like, I really believe that community fuels confidence. I don't think confidence is something that you can build on your own. So the program is online and we have lots of moments for networking in large groups and small groups, but we also have moments so that people can meet up offline, find other bonders in their cities. We have live sessions, personal reflection moments, community accountability. And by the end of the bond, women see themselves totally differently. It changes, confidence changes everything. Whether it's earning more money, so the average salary increase for a bond graduate is 46%.
Wow.
Whether it's stepping up into leadership in their employment role, bonders are 82% more likely to apply for a job that they wouldn't have applied for before the experience. And whether it's feeling that they are someone who wants to speak up for what they believe in and talk about what they care about and stand for something. Um, so yeah, we're changing the world one bond at a time.
And I said we would also kind of briefly chat about, and I guess this is a sort of a nice way in for people who might not feel kind of ready to
Mhm.
jump into a bond, kind of one of those types of bonds. But you've also got a visibility bond that's kind of permanently available. That's a way for people to sort of dip a toe in and start thinking about some of these things. And how do people sign up for that? Because that's free. Is that right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
free. So the visibility bond is a way for you to get a flavour of what a bond is like, whilst getting a huge amount of value and experiencing and connecting with the upfront community. And we're diving deep into visibility. So that is about letting yourself and your work be seen, be appreciated, be recognised. We are talking about personal branding. We're talking about writing online, showing your work online, building a presence, building a community around yourself and your identity. And it's for employees and people who are freelance and founders. Doesn't matter what your setup is. We know that
Mhm.
women who have a personal brand are more likely to be promoted, they're more likely to progress, to earn more. So, and we also know that it's one of the most difficult things because there is so much, especially I think for folks who are British, there is so much fear around being called a show off,
Mm.
being seen to be too big for your boots. The who does she think she are? Who does she think she is? And those narratives are very deep in the west coast of Scotland, where I grew up, which I think I've is why I'm so passionate about this and why I've been able to create a learning experience that speaks to so many women, because I have been on that journey, so much so that I have a tall poppy tattooed on my arm, because And if you don't know that the tall poppy phenomenon is the science shows us the more competent a woman appears to be, the less she is liked by both women and men. And I want more women to be comfortable with being a tall poppy and learn to really look at the role that we play in these systems that are holding us back, because this is not about blaming men. You know, women have a huge part to play. Internalized misogyny is a really big part of this conversation. It's like when you look at the data around self-promotion, we know that women are more likely to judge a woman negatively for self-promoting than a man is. So we're diving deep into all of that in the Visibility Bond. And there's a 7-day structured program. We have weekly live calls every Wednesday, and you can join anytime. So we'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anybody's curious about the charity bond, the government bond, the next public bond, a workplace bond, any of the bonds, you can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn, or Emma you can put my email in the show notes. I'm really always happy to have a conversation.
The first few times you'll feel uncomfortable putting yourself out there, but yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I listened to myself recording on podcast and just kind of wanted to curl up and and never do it again. And now I'm saying, yeah, whatever. You talk often and publicly about your failures as well as your successes. So if I put you on the spot, what would you say are your top 3 epic fails, and what did each of them teach you?
I would say I refuse to think of myself as a failure. Like, I don't do that. I don't feel like I've ever failed. I feel like I've made a lot of mistakes, and all of those mistakes are lessons
Mm.
in disguise, and they're always moments to learn. They bring me data, they bring me insights, they bring me information. So I've had so many moments, countless moments of feeling really uncertain, feeling really vulnerable, facing criticism. But I've always tried to turn those moments into opportunities to be better, to listen, to understand, to grow. So I think one really good example of this is when I first started showing up online 15 years ago, which I figured that out the other day, and I was like, wow, that is a lot of content. I really need to put it all into a book. There's a lot of words every day. But yeah, when I first started showing up online, I did that under a pseudonym because
Mm-hmm.
I was so afraid to show my face and to use my name, which I know that those of you who know me and my work now, that's really hard to
I find
believe.
that hard to believe, yeah.
But it's very, very true. And I was so scared of what other people would think, what other people would say, that I hid behind the name Red Jotter, which is Jotter's like a Scottish word for a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the colour red. So Red Jotter was the name of my blog. It was the name of all my social media handles. And, at the time I thought it was easier to hide to avoid potential judgment. But of course, what I've learned through coming out from behind that pseudonym and really being up front and center and teaching hundreds and hundreds of other women how to do the same is that just being yourself is what connects with people the most. Like, the more yourself you can be, the more value you're going to create for people. So, I think the decision I made to hide behind a pseudonym was a reflection of my own fear, and really facing that fear has allowed me to show up how I do now, which I always show up with the intention to connect deeply with people, to create value for people, to show people what's possible, to be real, to be honest. So yes, it was a mistake, but I don't see it as a failure. I see it as it was a necessary thing for me to go through to get to a place where I could show up online the way I do now.
Mm. And at what was there a point where you kind of very consciously thought you were going to sort of step in front of that
Yeah,
Anonymity.
yeah. And there was, and I've still got screenshots of the WhatsApp group with my friends because I was like, oh
Love that.
my God. I had to change the name on the handles, and yeah, I think that was maybe, I don't know how long that would be, maybe 9 years ago-ish, when I decided to make the switch. And it was really intentional, and it felt like a power move, and it was a power move.
I'm excited because you've got a book coming out.
Yes.
It's not a book for grown-ups though. Or is it? But it's partly a book for
Oh,
grown-ups.
yeah, it sneakily is.
Can you
Mhm.
tell us a bit more about it? Why you decided to write it and what it's about?
Yes, I'd love to. So this is my first step into the world of self-publishing. So wish me luck, and I need all the cheerleading and support I can get because I've never done this before and I've got no idea what I'm doing. But I have written a children's book, and it is called Taylor Meets the Trick, and it is a book to teach young children and the grown-ups around them about the patriarchy. So it's helping children and families understand what the patriarchy is in a way that is super simple, really engaging, and full of hope. So the story was inspired by my son, who is 7, and he has got long blonde golden curls, which are
Beautiful hair.
really like he has the best hair, and he often gets mistaken for a girl.
Mhm.
And so the story follows Taylor, who also has long blonde hair. They're mistaken for a girl by their teacher at the first day of school, and at first Taylor doesn't understand, and then he starts to notice these invisible rules and this trick creature that appears on people's shoulders that is telling people that there's rules for boys and there's rules for girls. And those rules determine who gets to wear a dress, who gets to wear shorts, who gets to do what, who's expected to fit into neat little boxes. And so when Taylor's daddy teaches him what the trick is and helps him see the creature and see these made up rules, he realizes that once you see the trick, it doesn't work. Because once you know that it's there, you can question it, you can meet it with curiosity, and then it disappears because it gets bored. So I wrote the book because I think children experience these limiting ideas from a really, really young age. The
Mm.
data shows us that it shows up in playgroups and nurseries where teachers are giving boys one type of toy and giving girls another type of toy. I also see a really big demand from the women in my own community who are mothers of, like, they want to have tools and language to be able to have this conversation, particularly with male partners and
Mhm.
male co-parents who might not be at the same stage in the journey as them, of understanding how important it is that we have these conversations from a really early age with our children. So the book hopefully will help them name it, grow up knowing that they do not have to play by these unfair rules. And when the moments arise where we do get tricked, because we all get tricked all the
Yep.
time. My son is constantly telling me that I've been tricked, and this is my literal job. It's like, this is what I do all day, every day. I've been talking to him about the trick, which it was an idea that was inspired by Robert Webb, the comedian.
Mm.
He wrote about it in his book. His daughter kind of couldn't say the patriarchy because she was really little, and it came out as the trick. So I've kind of took that and built on it. And Atlas will say things to me like one time he was asking me, well, why don't you like it? It was a song or a movie or something. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't like it. And he said, well, usually if you don't know why, it's the trick.
Love it.
I was like, mate, you're 5. Like, what? This is nuts. So I am I'm really excited to see the ripple effect the book is going to have. Of course, at the back of the book, we've got conversation guides and resources and information for families, for teachers to to then have the proper, the reflective, important conversation about what are we doing to challenge these norms, because they are harming everybody.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. My kids are a bit older, but I will for sure be buying a copy for their primary school that they are just about to outgrow. And my youngest is about to go to secondary school in September. Would love to see that in all schools and educational settings. And yeah, do you have a rough idea of when it's going to be out, or is that still
Definitely this year.
okay?
So it is ready. The work to be done now is to figure out, marketing, launch plan, all that fun
All the exciting stuff.
stuff.
So you and your family relocated to Sweden 4 years ago, and we have kind of have that. So I lived with my family in Denmark for 2 years, but we've been back for quite a while now. What do you love the most about living there, and what's the hardest part? And what would be your advice for anyone with a young family thinking about moving to another country?
Yeah, good question. There's so much to love about Sweden. It's like my son went to what they call doggies care, which is like daycare, then for schola, which is primary school, and my childcare bill was £100 a month.
Yeah, Denmark was, I think it was like 25% of what you would pay here in the UK, something
Yeah.
ridiculous. I don't
So it
know.
really does give families so much flexibility and support. Like it's a very, I've lived in Stockholm. We now live in Uppsala, which is a small city, 30
Mhm.
minutes north of Stockholm. It's super safe. It's very clean. It's a very well organized country. But I think the hardest part is the shadow side of those things, which is for me, Swedish culture is very insular and very
Mm,
introverted. It is very, very difficult to make friends, to build connections, just to have even moments of connection with, the guy who's serving you at the checkout or the woman who works in the pharmacy. There's very little warmth. And I think Swedes tend to have very established social circles,
yeah.
and many of them stay in Sweden their whole life, which means that, it just feels, I think if you're not Swedish, you feel like an outsider, and that kind of sucks.
Mm,
And I'm sure it's not the only. I mean, I know for sure it's not the only European city that would feel that way. And I know people who have moved here and love it, but I think it's also about circumstances, right? We moved during a global pandemic. Me and my partner both work for my business, which means we work from home. We don't have colleagues. We don't have an office. None of us have family here. I think most people who move to Sweden have a partner who has a job here or a partner who's Swedish.
mm,
So they're moving with some sort of connection.
got
And
a
of course,
network. Yeah.
yeah, we didn't have that. Having said all of that, my advice would absolutely be to do it. Like if you're a family, if you're somebody who is drawn to trying to live abroad, to live somewhere else, absolutely 100,000% do it. Like, what is the best thing that can happen? It's all reversible. If you
Mm,
don't like it, just come back. Like for us, we always think of things as an experiment. It's like this is safe to try. We're just going to try this. And now it'll be 5 years in November. We're definitely not staying here forever, but we think it's an incredible place for my son to grow up and for my son to go through early education. So right now, that's where we are.
lots of parallels with our experience of living in Copenhagen. And yeah, but definitely, as you say, 110%. Wouldn't change it. Wouldn't change it.
Did you learn any Danish?
I did. I did. So when we moved there at the time, you could still get free Danish classes paid for by the state.
Oh, nice.
So I didn't have a job when we first got there, but my husband was working for a local company, but working in English. So he didn't really end up learning that much Danish. But and the kids were fluent after 6
Yeah,
months.
Atlas is fluent.
So, yeah, of course, they've forgotten it all now. But. Anyway, but yeah, it was an amazing experience, and
my favourite Danish word is marshmallow.
oh, I don't know that one. Oh, flødeboller. Is that flød?
Like, let me see, because it's so funny.
Flødeboller is the ones that are covered in chocolate. Is that right?
Scumfidus.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I remember the first time someone said that to me, I was like, excuse me? It's what? Like, scumfidus. It's great.
That is good. So not necessarily thinking here about Sweden or marshmallows or anything in particular, but if I gave you a magic wand and let you change one thing, what would it be and why?
Oh, I love this question. So if I had a magic wand, I would be dressed like Galinda from Wicked, of course. And I would erase the lie that confidence is something that you either have or don't have. I think if every woman could understand that confidence is a muscle that you build by taking action, and it's not something that's innate and it's not something that you're born with, it would change the world, because I really do believe that confident women change the world.
Well, you're doing that anyway. It might just take a little bit longer without the magic wand, but
But I'm trying my best.
Lauren, thank you so much. I'll make sure that we've got links to all of the things that we've talked about. And when the book is out, I will go back and put a link in to the show notes as well, so that people can get hold of a copy of that. And hopefully it will be on pre-order very soon. Can't wait to read it. Congratulations. Writing a book is no mean feat. But yeah, it's been lovely catching up with you.
So lovely. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Middling Along podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please go and leave us a review over at Apple Podcasts. You can check out the full back catalogue of all our episodes over at middlingalong.com. You can also find out more about my work as a coach. Go to www.thetripleshift.org.